I am not in the least bit offended if during the show you have to take a call. We'll record it. So it is, first of all, what did you make of the Chris Paul trade?
Well, obviously it was stunning. I had been hearing from some players close to Chris for about a week that he's out of there. And it was hard for me to believe until I would see it happen. A lot of people thought around the league that Chris wanted to be recruited. He would flirt with other teams, but at the end of the day, go back to the Clippers because he loves L.A. and the money they could offer. Now, David Aldridge is reporting that they were not willing to give him that 5th year. I was told a few months ago that Chris's mentality was 5 years with the Clippers, 4 years somewhere else. So if they weren't willing to give him that 5th year, obviously he made good on that decision. But I think at the end of the day, you know what this is?
What?
This is an indictment on the Clippers culture. And Doc Rivers, point blank. Chris lobbied hard. He wanted Doc Rivers there, 4 years ago when he took over the team?
Yeah.
And if you look on paper at what the Clippers have versus what the Rockets have, who's got more on paper?
I do like James Harden, but your insinuation.
You got Harden, but you don't have. You got 2 stars with the Clippers in Blake and DeAndre. You have a great shooter in JJ Redick. You had a 6th man of the year, multi-time winner in Jamal Crawford, and you had Chris Paul. Like, on paper, that's a super team. If Chris Paul was joining the Clippers today, we would be saying, oh, that's a super team. That's another super team. What you have right now in Houston with just Harden and Chris Paul and a group of role players does not fit our today's definition of a super team.
So
it's 2 stars.
You think it's basically he got tired of Doc Rivers?
No, I don't say that's all it is. But I'm saying the fact that Doc and his persona, his reputation, his image, and everybody loves Doc. And he's been obviously a winning coach in this league. No one would think that a top player would walk away from Doc like that. Doc's reputation was being able to work with veteran players. And Chris Paul jetted from a talented team. And so that's why I say it's an indictment on the culture that's been created there with the Clippers.
Let me reverse it and say it's an indictment, though I don't believe this, on Chris Paul, who's incredibly difficult to play with.
Well, obviously, that's been said by a lot of players. Chris is very demanding. From dating back to New Orleans, not just since he's been with the Clippers. He is very demanding. He's virtually a perfectionist out there. And some of the problems he had with Blake Griffin was this is the thing. If Blake goes back to the Clippers, you're going to see some things from Blake Griffin that you didn't know he could do. He's going to be able to handle the ball kind of like a point forward, obviously not LeBron James like or anything, but like a point forward. His assist will go up if he handles the ball a lot. And you'll get to see some versatility in his game that you didn't see. He wanted to have the ball a little bit more, and Chris was not going to give it up to him. But that's because Chris feels like the ball is better in my hands, and I'm the better decision maker than you are. So there are those now that feel like him going to play with Harden. I think it's a tough match because they both are ball dominant. Mike D'Antoni's system has always been, whether in all 4 of his stops, you count Denver if he was there briefly, but 1 point guard dominating the ball, high pick and roll, making the decisions for everybody else. Everybody else spreading the floor. Now, Chris, who's going to handle the ball most of the time, Chris or James?
Chris.
Okay. I look, there are those that think it close to Chris that think it will work because they say if Chris trusts the other guy,
that's what I told,
he'll give up the ball.
That's what I told Kristine.
Well, and they've both matured. Don't you think that, too? They've both been with teams where they tried to hold the ball the whole time, and it didn't work. So now they realize, all right, I'm going to have to give it up sometimes in order to win.
Yes, I agree. Because remember, Chris Paul wanted Chauncey Billups with the Clippers. And obviously he knew Chauncey would handle the ball a lot. So it seems like he's willing to do that. Here's the problem, because some people have told me Chris always says that, but at the end of the day, he's going to end up pounding the ball. It's easy to mentally he'll be there, But your game is your game.
I love that. That's what Kristine says should be right. But it's like broadcasting. I can work with a partner, and then you put somebody with a partner, and they can't work with a partner.
Exactly.
I mean, like
your
in
game is your game.
Yeah, like the way you're a broadcaster, you end up going back to your broadcasting style. And I've had guys in my 25 years of doing this who I've watched program directors in radio say, well, he's better here, but I'll make him do this. And I'm like, it never works.
Yep.
Like people by 35 develop a style, and that's the style they have.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to read you these two. Tim McMahon's an NBA reporter. Source on the Rocket says they think they're getting Carmelo or Paul George. Jonathan Fagan of the Houston Chronicle on Twitter. The Rockets have no qualms about a Carmelo D'Antoni reunion or taking the risk on Paul George, re-upping as a free agent. I'll throw this at you. I said this earlier. LeBron's been aggressive. He's been rewarded. The Warriors have been aggressive. Let's go get KD. We've already got a title. They've been rewarded. Houston, aggressive, rewarded. Boston, patient. Do you think, does this affect at all Boston today?
It has to. It has to. Go get Paul George if you can, because Houston, that's a great situation. Obviously,
but
if you can get
got
to Cleveland, Boston has the most to offer.
Easily.
And you don't have to empty the cupboard. I mean, you can give up a lot and still have a lot left over. But you have to go for, I've been told for the past few weeks, Paul George really wants to win. LA is, obviously he's got a heart for LA and he wants to be here and, he grew up here and so on and so forth. But I've been told first and foremost he wants to win. And if he's in a great situation, whether it's Cleveland, Boston, or Houston, is he going to leave that to go to a lottery team with a couple young players? No matter how good Lonzo Ball is, he's not going to be better than LeBron. Okay,
let's segue to LeBron. You have confirmed. Now, Cleveland's in this weird space where their rival Boston can give the Pacers far more, and Houston appears to be hyper-aggressive. And here's the GM-less Cavs sitting there with LeBron thinking, okay, you had a story we've heard about Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
A guy from the Cleveland scene, Vincent Gregoric, I don't even know him, but he tweeted a few days ago from Cleveland scene that the Cavs had on the table a three-way deal with Phoenix and Indiana, where Channing Frye and Kyrie Irving would go to Phoenix. Wow. The number 4 pick, and he didn't name a player, but obviously someone else from Phoenix would go to Indiana, and then Paul George and Eric Bledsoe would go to Cleveland. Ooh. Now, I'm told that is true, that was discussed.
Why didn't they make the deal?
What I was told was that Indiana didn't think it was getting enough. What the guy from Cleveland scene, Vincent, reported was that Dan Gilbert went to LeBron and said, We'll do this if you guarantee you're going to stay here long term. And LeBron didn't give him the guarantee. I don't know if that part is true or not. But I do know that deal was discussed on the table and I believe didn't get done because of Indiana. But if you're Cleveland, that, as much as I would hate to give up Kyrie, because he is maybe the most unguardable player or one of them in the league.
Paul George and Eric Gordon?
Yeah. Eric Bledsoe.
Eric Bledsoe.
Because Bledsoe is a great defender. Now, he doesn't shoot it very well, but he's a great defender at the point guard who's going to, guard Steph Curry and so on and so forth. And you still get to keep Kevin Love with Paul.
Or move
LeBron
Kevin
could
Love.
play the point. Part of me would love to see LeBron just say, you know what, I'm a point guard now. Because he'd be magic and then some. But, it's interesting. But it gives you some of the Cavs mindset that, now, they also were a bit hesitant because Paul George only has the 1 year. It's one thing to give up Kevin Love for a 1 year, what could be a 1 year rental. It's another thing to give up Kyrie. So that was weighing on them as well.
Finally, what's happening with the Lakers here? They're watching all this stuff. They can't duplicate what Boston can. Are they going to be as aggressive? Like, how is this falling with the Lakers right now?
I was talking to an executive, a great executive in the league earlier this morning. he's kind of down on what the Lakers have done in turn. He feels like they may have blown an opportunity to get Paul George.
How?
Just in that they didn't make a draft day deal. Now, he didn't go as far as saying they should have given up the number 2 pick or Brandon Ingram. But he feels like if George goes to one of these contenders,
He's not leaving.
He's not leaving. And I tend to agree. If he goes to Houston, and even if they don't get out of the West, but they play really well together, chemistry is developing, and maybe they lose in the conference finals, why would George leave that?
What if he goes to Houston? Okay, I'll throw this out at you. So Paul George goes to Houston, and as Kristine and you have theorized, Harden and Chris Paul, it don't work. And then Paul George is like, hey, this ain't working. Lonzo has a really good rookie year. So, Kristine and you have both said this, and I don't think you're wrong. I am hoping Houston's good because I like good basketball. Yeah. What if Chris Paul and Harden don't work? Paul George sits there and goes, I don't want to play with this.
You make a great point, and this kind of, undergirds your point about, and Danny Ainge, like I said, he's a great executive, but Daryl Morey's taking a risk.
Oh, yeah.
And Danny's kind of being more cautious.
Right.
Because what if it doesn't, whether they get Paul George or not, what if it doesn't work between Chris and Harden? And Chris, there's no guarantee. I know they've got the wink, wink, and look, we'll extend you and all that. But, Chris may be taking a risk, and Daryl Morey's taking a risk on that.
I like Daryl Morey, though.
Look, he's
a poker player.
Even some guys around the league who aren't his biggest fan are saying, look, say what you want, but he's getting stuff done. You had to give him credit. And look, he's a risk taker, and it's paying off, and they're going to be one of the hottest stories in the league next year.